While my son and his wife were frantically calling every real estate office and bank in Los Angeles, trying to understand how their $1.2 million dream house and all their investment properties had been legally transferred out of their names in a single morning, I was sitting in my new oceanfront condo in Malibu, enjoying my morning coffee, and finally understanding that sometimes the family members who abandon you on the side of the 405 freeway during a stroke scare are about to discover they just left the wrong 70-year-old woman stranded. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been abandoned by people who were supposed to protect you, only to discover they had been planning to exploit your expertise all along? Share your story below, because today you're going to learn that sometimes the family members who think a senior citizen with a real estate license is just a convenient resource are about to find out they just underestimated someone with 50 years of property development experience and legal access to every deed, mortgage, and title they thought they controlled. This story is about the scorching August afternoon when I realized that my own son, the child I'd raised alone after his father walked out, put through business school with every rental property, profit I could generate, supported through his early entrepreneurial failures, and helped establish his successful property investment empire across Southern California, had been systematically treating me like an unpaid real estate consultant while positioning himself to inherit my multi-million-dollar portfolio without ever showing me basic human respect or consideration. When I discovered that the son I'd sacrificed everything for, invested my life's work in, and trusted with my most valuable assets, had been quietly treating me like a business liability to be managed rather than a mother to be cherished, all while enjoying full access to the property empire I'd spent 5 decades building from a single duplex in Riverside, that's when everything changed forever. My name is Eleanor Catherine Martinez, and at 70 years old, I thought I'd found the perfect balance between supporting my son's ambitious real estate ventures while maintaining my own dignity and independence in my beautiful Craftsman home in Pasadena, just 30 minutes from his Newport Beach office. For 4 years, this arrangement had seemed like the ideal solution for a widowed mother who wanted to remain close to family while continuing to use her decades of real estate expertise to help expand the property portfolio that had become our family's primary source of wealth and security. But what I didn't know was that while I'd been working 18-hour days managing our property empire, analyzing market trends, negotiating deals, and using my 5 decades of industry connections to secure financing and development opportunities that had made my son a millionaire several times over, he and his wife had been secretly meeting with attorneys and financial advisors to figure out how to legally separate me from the very assets I'd spent my entire adult life building. The family real estate partnership had been my son Marcus's idea, what he'd presented as a practical solution that would allow me to contribute my 5 decades of industry knowledge, my impeccable credit rating, and my extensive network of contractors, inspectors, and real estate professionals, while also ensuring he had access to my properties as collateral for larger investment deals and development projects. As someone who'd spent 50 years in California real estate, rising from a desperate single mother renting a studio apartment to owning a portfolio worth over $8.2 million, I'd understood exactly how to structure these partnerships to provide maximum leverage while maintaining proper legal protections for both parties. What I hadn't understood was that my son Marcus Antonio Martinez and his wife Jessica Chen Martinez had been viewing my real estate expertise and property portfolio not as evidence of my continued value and competence, but as convenient assets they could control while treating me with the kind of casual disrespect typically reserved for hired help, rather than the woman who'd built everything they were benefiting from. The Pasadena home where I'd been living, since transitioning from active real estate development to portfolio management, had become both my sanctuary and my strategic command center, though I hadn't realized the strategic importance until much later. The beautifully restored 1920s Craftsman in the Madison Heights neighborhood had been chosen specifically for its proximity to Marcus's business operations and its accessibility to the network of properties I'd been managing throughout Los Angeles, Orange, and Riverside counties, allowing me to maintain oversight of my investments while remaining available to consult on the increasingly complex deals that had become my primary contribution to our family's continued success. From my home office, surrounded by decades of property records, development permits, zoning documentation, and investment portfolios, I'd been quietly managing a real estate empire worth over $8.2 million that included 47 rental properties, 6 commercial developments, and strategic land holdings throughout Southern California that supported not just my own comfortable retirement, but also the ambitious expansion plans that had made Marcus and Jessica's rapid ascent in the region's competitive real estate market possible. The scale of what I'd been managing for our family was staggering when you looked at the complete picture. The rental portfolio alone was generating over $89,000 monthly in gross income, with net cash flow after expenses, taxes, and maintenance reserves of approximately $67,000 per month. The commercial properties, including 2 small shopping centers in Riverside and Ontario, plus a 4-unit professional building in Pasadena, were producing an additional $31,000 monthly in net income. Combined with strategic land holdings that were appreciating at rates significantly above market averages, our family's real estate assets were generating over $1.2 million annually in passive income while continuing to appreciate in value. But the monthly cash flow was just the tip of the iceberg. The real value of my 5 decades in real estate was the expertise, relationships, and market intelligence that allowed me to identify opportunities and structure deals that typically weren't available to ordinary investors. My understanding of zoning regulations, development potential, and market cycles meant I could recognize undervalued properties, negotiate favorable financing terms, and execute improvement strategies that consistently generated returns of 15–20% annually, compared to market averages of 7 to 10%. More importantly, my reputation in the Southern California real estate community meant I had access to off-market deals, preferred financing relationships, and industry connections that provided competitive advantages worth millions of dollars in additional opportunities and savings. When a developer needed to sell quickly due to financing problems, I got the call. When a bank had foreclosure properties they wanted to move quietly, I was on their list. When zoning changes or infrastructure improvements were being planned that would affect property values, I heard about it months before the information became public. This wasn't just luck or good timing. This was the result of 50 years of relationship building, professional excellence, and the kind of reputation that took decades to establish and could be destroyed overnight, if not carefully maintained. Every deal I'd ever completed, every client I'd ever served, and every professional I'd ever worked with had contributed to building a network of trust and respect that provided our family with access to opportunities that money alone couldn't buy. The path that had led me to that home office, armed with real estate expertise that most people spent entire careers trying to develop, had begun 52 years earlier when I'd walked into Century 21 in Riverside as a desperate 28-year-old single mother, fresh from a divorce and needing work that would pay enough to support myself and my infant son while building something more substantial than just survival. Real estate in 1972 had been a completely different world from the digital property platforms and institutional investment funds that dominated the industry today. Everything had been done with paper contracts, face-to-face negotiations, and the kind of relationship building that made or broke careers based on trust, local knowledge, and the ability to identify opportunities that others missed. It had been an industry that rewarded hard work, market intelligence, and the determination to build wealth through strategic property acquisition and development. But it had also been an industry that offered limited support for women, especially single mothers who needed flexible schedules while building professional credibility. Mrs. Martinez, the broker had said during my first interview, real estate requires the kind of person who can handle complex negotiations while also building relationships with clients who are making the biggest financial decisions of their lives. Do you think you have the determination for that kind of responsibility, especially as a single mother with other obligations? The question had been both challenging and slightly condescending, reflecting the attitudes of an era when women in real estate were often assumed to be supplementing their husband's income rather than building independent careers. But my answer had been immediate and confident. Sir, I'm a single mother who needs to build financial security for my family. I understand that real estate is about helping people achieve their dreams while building my own future. I'll work harder than anyone else you have because failure isn't an option for me. The starting position had been as a sales associate, earning purely on commission while learning every aspect of residential real estate from client prospecting to contract, negotiation to property valuation. But what had distinguished me from other entry-level agents had been my systematic approach to understanding not just how to sell properties, but how to analyze market trends, identify undervalued opportunities, and build long-term wealth through strategic property investment. While other agents had focused solely on generating immediate commission income, I'd been studying every aspect of real estate development, property management, and investment analysis. I'd attended every continuing education seminar available, had read every real estate investment book I could find, and had begun developing relationships with contractors, inspectors, appraisers, and other professionals who could provide insights into property values and improvement opportunities that weren't apparent to casual observers. Within 18 months, I'd been recognized as Rookie of the Year for the entire Riverside County region, not just for sales volume, but for client satisfaction, scores, and professional development achievements that had impressed both colleagues and competitors. Within 3 years, I'd moved into commercial real estate and had begun developing the expertise in property development and investment strategies that would define my entire career. Each success had been reinvested into building my own property portfolio, creating the foundation for generational wealth that would eventually support Marcus's business ambitions. Eleanor has an intuitive understanding of property values and market dynamics that typically takes decades to develop, my broker had written in a performance review from 1978. She can walk through a neighborhood and immediately identify properties with development potential or investment opportunities that other agents miss entirely. Our clients trust her judgment because she combines market expertise with genuine concern for their financial success. The ability to read properties and neighborhoods had been developed through thousands of hours of market analysis, property inspections, and comparative studies that had taught me to recognize patterns and opportunities that weren't obvious to less experienced professionals. I could walk through a house and immediately identify structural improvements that would maximize resale value, recognize neighborhood trends that would affect long-term appreciation, and calculate renovation costs and timelines with accuracy that consistently surprised contractors and inspectors. This expertise had been particularly valuable during the 1980s recession, when many real estate professionals had struggled with market downturns, while I'd been able to identify distressed properties and motivated sellers who provided exceptional investment opportunities for clients who trusted my analysis and recommendations. The 1980s had been a period of enormous growth both personally and professionally. I'd built my first custom home in 1982, had begun developing small residential projects in 1985, and by 1988 had established Martinez Property Development as one of Riverside County's most respected small-scale development companies. Each project had been carefully chosen to build expertise while generating capital for larger and more ambitious developments. Martinez Property Development had started with a simple concept: identify undervalued properties in emerging neighborhoods, design improvements that would maximize both functionality and market appeal, and execute construction projects with quality standards that ensured long-term value retention and customer satisfaction. The approach had required detailed market analysis, conservative financing, and meticulous project management, but it had also generated returns that had consistently exceeded projections while building a reputation for reliability and excellence. The work had been challenging and demanding, requiring 80-hour weeks and constant attention to zoning regulations, construction management, and market conditions that could make or break individual projects. But it had also been deeply satisfying, providing the kind of financial independence and professional recognition that had made me one of the most successful female real estate developers in the Inland Empire. Property development in the 1980s had meant taking enormous personal and financial risks to identify undervalued land, navigate complex permitting processes, manage construction projects, and market completed developments to buyers who were trusting my judgment about location, quality, and value. My success had been built on meticulous research, conservative financing, and the ability to deliver projects on time and within budget while maintaining quality standards that had earned repeat business and referrals. Eleanor Martinez builds homes and developments that retain their value because she understands what makes properties desirable for decades, not just during initial sales, a real estate industry magazine had noted in a 1989 profile. Her developments consistently appreciate faster than market averages because she combines superior construction quality with strategic location selection and timeless design principles. The magazine profile had been particularly meaningful because it had recognized not just my business success, but my approach to development that prioritized long-term value creation over short-term profit maximization. While many developers had been focused on quick turnarounds and maximum unit density, I'd been building properties that would still be desirable and well-maintained 20 or 30 years later, creating lasting value for buyers while establishing a reputation that had provided competitive advantages for decades. By 1995, Martinez Property Development had completed over 200 residential units and several small commercial projects throughout Riverside and San Bernardino counties, generating returns that had allowed me to build a substantial investment portfolio while also funding Marcus's education and supporting his early career development. The success of the development company had also provided capital for strategic property acquisitions that had formed the foundation of the investment portfolio that Marcus and Jessica had been planning to inherit. The transition into pure investment and portfolio management had come in the early 2000s, as I'd shifted from active development to strategic property acquisition and management of existing assets. This phase of my career had required different skills: analyzing rental markets, optimizing property performance, and coordinating maintenance and improvements across multiple properties while maximizing cash flow and long-term appreciation. Portfolio management had turned out to be even more complex than development, requiring sophisticated understanding of market cycles, tenant management, maintenance scheduling, and financial planning that balanced current income generation with long-term value preservation. Each property in my portfolio had required individual attention and customized management strategies that reflected its location, tenant base, and market position. By 2010, my property portfolio had grown to include 47 rental units, 3 small commercial properties, and strategic land holdings throughout Southern California, generating passive income that had supported both my comfortable retirement and Marcus's ambitious plans to expand into larger-scale commercial development projects. The portfolio's performance had been consistently superior to market benchmarks, reflecting both the quality of the original acquisitions and the effectiveness of my ongoing management strategies. The family partnership arrangement that had seemed so promising when Marcus had proposed it in 2020 had been designed to leverage my decades of experience and established portfolio to accelerate his transition from small-scale residential investments to major commercial development projects. The plan had been to combine my properties as collateral, my industry relationships as resources, and my expertise as guidance for deals that could generate returns far beyond what either of us could achieve independently. Mom, this partnership could transform our family's financial future, Marcus had said during our initial discussions about combining our real estate operations. Your expertise and portfolio combined with my energy and ambition, could create opportunities that would benefit multiple generations of our family. The proposal had seemed both logical and emotionally satisfying, providing a way to ensure that my life's work would continue to grow and provide benefits for my family, while also giving Marcus access to the resources and guidance he needed to achieve his professional goals. More importantly, the partnership had seemed to represent genuine respect for my contributions and recognition that my experience and assets were valuable resources that deserved to be honored rather than simply inherited. What Marcus had presented as a mutually beneficial partnership that would honor my contributions while building generational wealth had actually become a systematic exploitation of my assets and expertise while gradually eliminating my authority and respect within our family business operations. The legal structure Marcus had proposed had seemed appropriate and protective, establishing joint ownership and management arrangements that would provide him with access to my resources while maintaining my oversight and decision-making authority. The partnership agreements had been carefully drafted to ensure that my interests were protected while also providing the flexibility necessary for pursuing large-scale development opportunities. But what I hadn't realized was that Marcus and Jessica had been viewing the partnership arrangements not as permanent family business structures, but as temporary stepping stones that would provide them with access to my assets, while they developed strategies for eventually gaining complete control over properties and resources I'd spent 50 years building. The signs of their true intentions had been subtle at first. Small changes in language during business discussions, casual suggestions about streamlining decision-making processes, and occasional comments about my age and energy levels that had seemed like natural observations, rather than systematic preparations for eliminating my involvement in managing my own assets. Standing in my Pasadena home that August morning, reviewing property statements and development proposals that represented 5 decades of careful planning and strategic investment, I had no idea that the family members I'd been supporting with this extensive portfolio were about to abandon me on the freeway during a medical emergency, revealing the true extent of their selfishness and setting in motion events that would change everything forever. The beautiful craftsman home that had been my sanctuary was actually going to become the command center from which I would launch the most comprehensive real estate lesson Marcus and Jessica would ever receive about the consequences of exploiting someone with my expertise and access to the properties they'd been planning to steal. What Marcus and Jessica hadn't anticipated was that their plan to treat me as disposable had one fatal flaw. I was actually the person who understood our family's real estate operations better than they did, had legal access to deeds and titles they'd forgotten existed, and possessed the industry knowledge necessary to restructure their entire property world in ways they'd never see coming. The investigation that would follow would expose months of systematic planning to eliminate me from properties I'd purchased, developed, and managed for decades, and the response would transform our family dynamics forever while teaching them that some people fight back with consequences they never imagined possible. Sometimes the people who think you're just a convenient resource are about to discover you're actually someone with the power to restructure their entire financial future. Marcus and Jessica were about to learn that abandoning someone on the freeway was the most expensive mistake they'd ever made in their lives. Standing in my Pasadena home office that August morning, reviewing the increasingly concerning patterns in Marcus and Jessica's behavior toward me, I couldn't help but reflect on how dramatically different my life had become from those desperate early days when I'd first walked into that Century 21 office in Riverside, carrying nothing but determination and a burning need to build something substantial for my infant son and myself. But to comprehend the full scope of what was building toward that devastating freeway incident, you need to understand the journey of professional excellence, strategic thinking, and relentless hard work that had transformed a terrified single mother into one of Southern California's most successful real estate investors. A journey that had made Marcus and Jessica's systematic disrespect both possible and ultimately catastrophic. My transformation from struggling single mother to real estate mogul had begun 52 years earlier, when I'd been born Eleanor Catherine Richardson to parents who understood that in America, Real estate ownership was the foundation of genuine financial security and generational wealth building. My father, Roberto Richardson, had been a construction foreman for major residential developments throughout the San Gabriel Valley, specializing in the kind of large-scale housing projects that had transformed Southern California during the post-war boom of the 1950s and 1960s. Mija, my father had said during one of our regular Sunday afternoon drives through different neighborhoods, pointing out various properties and developments. In this country, the people who own land and buildings are the ones who build real wealth. Everything else, jobs, businesses, even money in banks, can disappear overnight. But land and properly maintained buildings will provide security for your children and your children's children. My mother, Carmen Elena Richardson, had been equally influential in shaping my understanding of what was possible for a determined woman willing to work harder and think more strategically than the people around her. She'd worked as a bookkeeper for a small property management company in Alhambra, while also managing our household finances with the kind of meticulous attention to detail that had kept our family financially stable, despite the economic uncertainties that had characterized the 1960s and early 1970s. Eleanor, my mother had told me during my high school years, never let anyone convince you that real estate is too complicated for women to understand. The women I know who have the most security and independence are those who own property, can analyze investments, and refuse to depend on other people for their housing and financial stability. The Richardson household had been intellectually stimulating and financially disciplined in ways that had prepared me for the real estate career I would eventually build. Dinner conversations had regularly included discussions of property values, neighborhood development trends, construction quality standards, and the importance of building systems that could generate income and appreciate in value over decades rather than years. Our home had been filled with real estate magazines, construction trade publications, and the kind of analytical thinking that had made complex property investments seem manageable rather than overwhelming. By age 16, I'd already been helping. My mother analyzed rental property advertisements, had developed sophisticated understanding of property valuation principles, and had begun to understand that successful real estate investment required much more than just buying and holding properties. It required strategic thinking, market analysis, and deep knowledge of zoning, construction, and financing systems that most people never bothered to learn. My academic journey had begun at Alhambra High School, a public school known for its strong business and technical education programs that had emphasized practical skills and real-world applications rather than just theoretical knowledge. The school's approach to education had emphasized analytical thinking, project management, and the kind of personal discipline that would serve me well in the competitive and demanding world of real estate development and investment. At Alhambra High, I'd excelled in mathematics, business studies, and technical drawing, while also developing the organizational skills and attention to detail that would characterize my entire approach to property analysis and investment decision-making. The school's student body had included children of contractors, real estate agents, small business owners, and skilled tradespeople who understood that practical knowledge and hard work were the primary paths to economic advancement and financial independence. Miss Richardson, my business education teacher had written in a recommendation letter that I'd found years later, demonstrates the rare combination of analytical intelligence and practical common sense that characterizes natural leaders in business and real estate. She has the mathematical skills to understand complex financial relationships and the personal judgment to make sound decisions under pressure. My senior project at Alhambra High had focused on analyzing the economic impact of freeway construction on residential property values in different San Gabriel Valley communities, research that had required me to interview real estate agents, property appraisers, and city planning officials about the relationship between infrastructure development and long-term property appreciation. The project had given me my first taste of the complex analysis and relationship management that would characterize my real estate career. Graduating from high school in 1970, I'd planned to attend Cal Poly Pomona to study business administration with a focus on real estate development. But life had other plans, and by age 20, I'd married Daniel Martinez, a promising young contractor who'd seemed to share my ambitions for building wealth through strategic property investments and small-scale development projects. The marriage had started with shared dreams and complementary skills that had seemed perfect for building a real estate business together. Daniel had possessed construction expertise and trade relationships that would have been valuable for development projects, while I'd brought analytical skills and market knowledge that could identify opportunities and structure profitable investments. For the first few years, we'd worked together on small fix-and-flip projects that had generated modest profits while we'd planned for larger and more ambitious ventures. But by 1972, it had become clear that Daniel's priorities had shifted away from building long-term wealth toward immediate gratification and lifestyle spending that had made systematic investment accumulation impossible. While I'd wanted to reinvest profits into acquiring additional properties and building a substantial portfolio, Daniel had preferred to spend our earnings on expensive trucks, recreational vehicles, and entertainment that had provided no lasting value or investment return. The fundamental disagreement about financial priorities had been exacerbated by Daniel's increasing involvement with friends and activities that had taken him away from our shared business goals and family responsibilities. By the time Marcus had been born in early 1972, Daniel had essentially abandoned any pretense of being a reliable business partner or committed family man. The divorce had been finalized in August 1972, leaving me as a single mother with an infant son, minimal financial resources, and an urgent need to build income and stability as quickly as possible. Daniel had provided no ongoing financial support and had shown no interest in maintaining relationships with Marcus, effectively disappearing from our lives and leaving me to build our future entirely independently. Standing in the Century 21 office that September morning in 1972, holding baby Marcus while discussing employment opportunities with the broker, I'd understood that I was starting from zero and that every decision I made would directly impact not just my own survival, but my son's future opportunities and security. Mrs. Martinez, the broker, James Patterson, had said during our initial meeting, "Real estate can be an excellent career for someone with your motivation and circumstances, but it requires complete commitment and the ability to work irregular hours while building a client base. Are you prepared for that kind of challenge while also raising a young child?" The question had been both practical and slightly skeptical, reflecting the realities of an industry where success required extensive networking, weekend work, and the kind of availability that seemed difficult to maintain as a single mother. But my answer had been based on absolute necessity rather than casual career interest. "Mr. Patterson, I need to build financial security for my family, and I believe real estate provides the best opportunity for someone willing to work harder and learn faster than the competition. I understand that success will require sacrifice and dedication, but failure isn't an option for me." The starting position had been as a sales associate working purely on commission, with no guaranteed income and complete responsibility for generating my own leads, managing my own schedule, and building relationships with potential clients who had no reason to trust an inexperienced agent with their most important financial decisions. The early months had been financially terrifying and emotionally exhausting. I'd been working 60-hour weeks while arranging childcare for Marcus, studying for licensing exams and continuing education requirements, and learning the complex legal and financial aspects of real estate transactions that could make or break deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what had distinguished me from other entry-level agents had been my systematic approach to understanding not just the mechanics of real estate sales, but the underlying economic and market forces that determined property values, neighborhood trends, and investment opportunities. While other agents had focused solely on generating immediate commission income, I'd been studying every aspect of property analysis, market research, and investment strategy that could provide long-term career advantages. My first major breakthrough had come 6 months into my real estate career, when I'd identified a small apartment building in Riverside that was being offered for sale by an elderly owner who needed to liquidate quickly due to health problems. The property had been poorly marketed and had attracted little interest from other agents because it needed significant maintenance and had been priced based on current rental income rather than potential after improvements. But my analysis had shown that with approximately $15,000 in renovations and improved management, the property could generate 40% higher rental income while also appealing to a better class of tenants who would take better care of the units and provide more stable, long-term occupancy. The total investment, including purchase price and improvements, would have been $89,000, with projected annual cash flow of over $18,000 after all expenses. I'd presented the opportunity to 3 different investor clients, but none had been willing to take on the renovation project or trust the projections of a relatively inexperienced agent. Frustrated by the missed opportunity, but convinced of my analysis, I'd made the decision that would change my entire career trajectory. I decided to purchase the property myself, using every dollar I could scrape together for the down payment, and financing the improvements through a combination of personal credit and contractor relationships I'd been developing. Eleanor, are you sure you want to take this kind of risk when you're just starting your career and supporting a young child? James Patterson had asked when I'd informed him of my decision. Real estate investment can be very profitable, but it can also be financially devastating if projects don't work out as planned. But I'd been confident in my analysis and had understood that the opportunity represented exactly the kind of strategic risk-taking that separated successful real estate professionals from those who remained dependent on commission income throughout their careers. Mr. Patterson, I've studied this property and this market more thoroughly than any client I could present it to. If I'm not willing to invest my own money based on my analysis, why should I expect others to trust my judgment? The apartment building project had been even more successful than my projections had suggested. Within 18 months, I'd completed all planned improvements, had increased rental income by 45%, and had refinanced the property to pull out enough capital for a down payment on a second investment property while maintaining positive cash flow of over $2,000 monthly. More importantly, the success of my first investment property had established my reputation as an agent who understood property values, renovation potential, and investment analysis rather than just sales techniques and marketing strategies. Clients had begun seeking me out specifically for investment opportunities and had trusted my recommendations because they'd seen the results of my own successful projects. Eleanor Martinez has an exceptional ability to identify undervalued properties and develop realistic improvement plans that maximize investment returns. One of my early investor clients had written in a testimonial that had helped attract additional investment business. She doesn't just show properties. She provides comprehensive analysis that helps investors make informed decisions about potential risks and returns. By 1975, I'd purchased 3 additional investment properties and had built a substantial real estate sales business that had specialized in investment properties, first-time home buyers, and small commercial transactions. My success had been based on thorough market knowledge, honest communication about property conditions and investment potential, and follow-up services that had ensured client satisfaction and generated extensive referral business. The combination of sales commissions and investment property cash flow had provided financial stability and independence that had allowed me to focus on long-term wealth building rather than just covering immediate expenses. Marcus had been enrolled in excellent childcare and educational programs. I'd been able to purchase a comfortable home in a desirable neighborhood, and I'd begun developing the financial foundation that would eventually support larger and more ambitious investment projects. The transition into property development had begun in 1978, when I'd identified a parcel of undeveloped land in Riverside that was being offered for sale at below-market prices due to the owner's financial difficulties and the need for quick liquidation. The property had been zoned for residential development, but had required extensive site preparation, utility installation, and navigation of complex permitting processes that had deterred most potential buyers. My analysis had shown that the land could support 8 single-family homes that would appeal to first-time buyers and young families who were being priced out of more established neighborhoods closer to Los Angeles. The total development cost, including land acquisition, site preparation, construction, and marketing, would have been approximately $420,000, with projected sales revenue of over $680,000 based on comparable properties in similar developments. The project had required skills and knowledge that went far beyond traditional real estate sales, including understanding of zoning regulations, construction management, contractor coordination, and development financing that most real estate agents never acquired. But I'd been determined to expand my expertise and had spent months studying development processes, building relationships with contractors and subcontractors, and learning about construction schedules and quality control. That would be essential for successful project completion. Eleanor, residential development is a completely different business from real estate sales, my banker had warned when I'd applied for development financing. The risks are much higher, the timelines are longer, and the capital requirements are substantial. Are you sure you're ready for this kind of project? But I'd been confident in my preparation and had understood that development represented the next logical step in building wealth through real estate expertise, rather than remaining dependent on commission income and small-scale investment properties. I've studied every aspect of this project and this market, and I've built relationships with contractors and professionals who can help ensure successful completion. This development will establish my reputation and provide capital for larger future projects. The residential development project had been completed 6 months ahead of schedule and had generated profits that had exceeded my projections by over 30%. All 8 homes had been sold within 4 months of completion, and the success had established Martinez Property Development as a serious player in Riverside County's residential development market. More importantly, the development project had provided me with comprehensive understanding of construction processes, regulatory requirements, and market dynamics that had prepared me for larger and more complex projects. I'd learned how to manage multiple contractors simultaneously, how to navigate permit processes efficiently, and how to coordinate construction schedules with marketing timelines that ensured optimal sales results. Eleanor Martinez has demonstrated exceptional project management skills and market understanding that resulted in a highly successful residential development, the Riverside County Planning Department had noted in a project completion report. Her attention to detail and quality standards established new benchmarks for small-scale development in the region. Throughout the early 1980s, Martinez Property Development had completed 12 additional residential projects throughout Riverside and San Bernardino counties, ranging from small infill developments to larger subdivisions that had included amenities like community pools, landscaped common areas, and architectural design standards that had commanded premium prices compared to competing developments. Each project had been carefully selected based on market analysis, location advantages, and potential for superior returns compared to alternative investment opportunities. My approach had been to focus on quality rather than quantity, ensuring that every development reflected superior planning, construction quality, and design standards that would maintain their value and appeal for decades after completion. The why. Success of Martinez Property Development had also generated capital that had allowed me to continue expanding my investment property portfolio, purchasing carefully selected rental properties that had provided stable cash flow while appreciating in value. By 1985, I'd owned 23 rental units and had completed 16 development projects that had established my reputation throughout the Inland Empire's real estate community. The financial foundation I'd been building had also enabled me to provide Marcus with excellent educational opportunities, including private schools, educational travel, and enrichment programs that had broadened his perspectives and prepared him for the business education that would eventually lead to his own real estate career. "Mom, I want to understand how you built all this," Marcus had said during his high school years. when he'd begun showing genuine interest in real estate and business. "I want to learn about property analysis and development so I can contribute to what you've created and maybe expand it even further." Marcus's interest in real estate had been deeply satisfying, representing not just career guidance, but the possibility of building a family business that could provide opportunities and security for multiple generations. I'd begun including him in property visits, development project meetings, and business planning sessions that had given him practical education in real estate analysis and decision-making processes. By the time Marcus had graduated from USC's business school in 2007, he'd had more comprehensive real estate education and practical experience than most professionals acquired during their entire careers. He'd worked summers with contractors on development projects, had assisted with property management and tenant relations, and had developed sophisticated understanding of market analysis and investment evaluation that had prepared him for immediate contributions to our family's real estate operations. The recession of 2008-2010 had provided exceptional opportunities for strategic property acquisitions at below-market prices, and Marcus had been instrumental in identifying and analyzing distressed properties that had become available due to foreclosures and motivated sellers who'd needed quick sales to address financial difficulties. "Mom, this market downturn is providing opportunities that might not be available again for decades," Marcus had observed during our property acquisition planning in 2009. "If we can structure our financing carefully and focus on properties with strong fundamentals, we could significantly expand our portfolio while prices are temporarily depressed." Marcus's analysis had been sophisticated, and his enthusiasm had been infectious, leading to a coordinated acquisition program that had added 18 properties to our portfolio between 2008 and 2012. The properties we'd purchased during this period had appreciated by an average of 85% over the following decade, generating both cash flow and equity growth that had substantially increased our family's net worth. The success of our coordinated investment strategy had reinforced my confidence in Marcus's judgment and had led to the formal partnership arrangements that had seemed like the natural evolution of our collaborative real estate activities. What I'd interpreted as shared commitment to family wealth building had actually been Marcus's strategic positioning to gain access to assets and expertise he'd eventually planned to control independently. But standing in my Pasadena home office, that August morning, surrounded by 50 years of real estate achievements and family investment success, I'd had no understanding that the son I'd raised and educated and mentored was about to abandon me on a freeway during a medical emergency, revealing the true scope of his ingratitude and setting in motion events that would demonstrate exactly what happened when people underestimated someone with my capabilities and legal access to properties worth over $8 million. The real estate, expertise, industry relationships, property ownership, and professional determination that Marcus and Jessica had been taking for granted were actually going to become the foundation for teaching them the most expensive lesson of their lives, about respecting the people who'd invested everything in making their success possible. Standing in my Pasadena home office that August morning, reviewing the increasingly troubling changes in Marcus and Jessica's attitude toward me and my contributions to our family's real estate empire, I couldn't help but remember how dramatically different things had been just 4 years ago when Marcus had first approached me with his proposal for formalizing our real estate partnership and had spoken with such genuine enthusiasm and respect about combining our expertise, resources, and vision to build something truly extraordinary together. It was a conversation that had taken place during what I now recognize as the golden beginning of our adult business relationship, a period when Marcus and Jessica seemed genuinely committed to honoring my decades of sacrifice and expertise, while building the kind of multi-generational wealth management system that would secure our family's financial future for decades to come. The pivotal conversation had occurred in September 2020, just 18 months after I'd officially retired from active property development to focus on portfolio management and strategic oversight of our family's substantial real estate holdings. Everything about my daily routine had required adjustment during this transition period. From shifting away from hands-on project management to developing systems for coordinating property maintenance, tenant relations, and investment analysis across our 47 rental units and multiple commercial properties. Marcus had visited me that Sunday afternoon in my Pasadena home, arriving with fresh pastries from Republic of Pie and a comprehensive business proposal that he and Jessica had been developing for several months. The gesture had touched me deeply during those months when I'd been adjusting to retirement and wondering whether my expertise and experience would continue to be valued and utilized in meaningful ways. Mom, I've been thinking extensively about our family's real estate situation and the opportunities we're missing by not coordinating our efforts more systematically, Marcus had said, as we'd sat in my living room surrounded by property files, market analysis reports, and investment documents that had been accumulating throughout my transition from active development to portfolio management. You have incredible expertise and an established portfolio that Jessica and I could really benefit from, and we have energy, ambition, and access to financing opportunities that could help optimize all our resources if we coordinated our strategies more effectively. Marcus's proposal had seemed both thoughtful and strategically sophisticated, reflecting the kind of analytical thinking and long-term planning that had characterized his approach to complex business challenges throughout his career. He'd clearly spent considerable time researching family business structures, partnership arrangements, and wealth management strategies, and had developed a comprehensive plan that would leverage my experience while providing growth opportunities and security benefits for everyone involved. I know retirement has left you managing complex investment decisions and property oversight responsibilities largely independently, Marcus had continued, spreading out financial projections and organizational charts that demonstrated the thoroughness of their preparation. And I also know that Jessica and I are dealing with increasingly sophisticated real estate opportunities that could really benefit from someone with your level of industry expertise and market knowledge. What if we created an integrated family real estate partnership that would help everyone while also ensuring you're not carrying all these management responsibilities by yourself? The partnership structure he'd outlined had seemed like the perfect solution to multiple challenges we'd all been facing independently. Rather than continuing to manage our real estate interests separately while missing opportunities for coordination, economies of scale, and strategic leverage, we could create a unified family business that would maximize our combined resources while providing appropriate security, growth potential, and management efficiency for different investment objectives and risk tolerances. Jessica and I have been discussing this extensively with our financial advisors and estate planning attorneys, Marcus had explained, producing legal documents and business planning materials that demonstrated their serious commitment to developing a sustainable and mutually beneficial partnership structure. We think a comprehensive family real estate partnership would allow us to coordinate our investment strategies, share management responsibilities, and leverage our combined resources while ensuring everyone maintains appropriate autonomy and benefits from the collective success we can achieve together. The business arrangements he'd proposed had been sophisticated and had demonstrated genuine respect for my expertise, experience, and the substantial assets I'd spent 5 decades accumulating and managing. Rather than simply asking me to provide consultation or advisory services for their independent projects, they'd envisioned a true partnership that would utilize my professional-level real estate knowledge, my established portfolio, and my industry relationships to optimize investment strategies, identify development opportunities, and coordinate financial planning across different income sources, life goals, and investment timeframes. Mom, we want this to be a genuine partnership that recognizes and honors your expertise while also providing enhanced security, growth opportunities, and management efficiency for everyone, Marcus had said with what had seemed like sincere appreciation and respect. You'd be functioning essentially as our family's chief real estate officer, using your decades of industry experience and your established portfolio to anchor strategies that would be much more difficult for Jessica and me to implement independently while we're focused on our other business commitments and career development. But what had impressed me most about Marcus's proposal had been his explicit recognition of the financial sacrifices and investments I'd made throughout his education and early career development, and his understanding that family business partnerships should reflect gratitude, shared commitment, and mutual respect rather than exploitation, assumption of entitlement, or taking advantage of family relationships for personal benefit. Jessica and I have been calculating the total investment you made in my education, career development, and early business ventures, Marcus had continued, producing a detailed financial analysis that had included not just direct educational expenses and business loans, but also the opportunity costs, foregone lifestyle improvements, and reinvested profits that had resulted from my commitment to his success rather than my own immediate gratification. We realize that our current financial situation and business opportunities exist largely because of your sacrifices, strategic thinking, and willingness to invest in my future rather than maximizing your own short-term benefits. We want to make sure our family partnership reflects that contribution and ensures you benefit appropriately from the success you made possible. The financial analysis Marcus had prepared had been both comprehensive and emotionally meaningful, demonstrating that he'd understood not just the monetary value of my contributions, but also the personal sacrifices and strategic decisions that had prioritized his opportunities over my own immediate interests. The total amount he'd calculated, including educational expenses, business startup costs, property down payments I'd provided, and opportunity costs of capital I'd allocated to his development rather than alternative investments, had exceeded $340,000 over the previous 25 years. Marcus, I never expected you to calculate or repay those investments, I'd told him, genuinely moved by his recognition of sacrifices I'd made voluntarily and hadn't expected him to acknowledge so systematically. Supporting your education and career development was my choice as your mother, and seeing your success has been reward enough for me. But Marcus had been insistent that our partnership arrangements should reflect proper appreciation for my contributions rather than treating them as obligations or assumptions that could be taken for granted without acknowledgement or reciprocal consideration. Mom, Jessica, and I believe that successful family businesses are built on mutual respect, fair compensation, and recognition of everyone's contributions rather than assumptions about family obligations, Marcus had replied. We want our partnership to demonstrate that we value your expertise and contributions, not just benefit from them without appropriate appreciation and compensation. During those first months after we'd established the formal partnership structure in November 2020, Marcus and Jessica had shown remarkable appreciation for my real estate management contributions and had seemed genuinely excited about the optimization opportunities, strategic coordination, and enhanced growth potential that had resulted from combining our previously separate real estate operations and investment strategies. My first major contribution to their real estate success had been restructuring their financing arrangements to take advantage of my established banking relationships, superior credit rating, and expertise in commercial real estate financing that had been developed over decades of successful projects and property acquisitions. When I'd reviewed their existing loan arrangements and investment financing in detail, I'd discovered that they'd been paying unnecessarily high interest rates on acquisition loans, had suboptimal property insurance arrangements, and had missed opportunities for tax advantage strategies and depreciation optimization that had been costing them over $47,000 annually in excessive expenses and lost tax benefits. Mom, I can't believe the difference your expertise has made in just 4 months, Marcus had said enthusiastically when I'd presented the results of my financing optimization project during our first quarterly partnership review meeting. The interest savings alone will pay for a luxury vacation to Europe this year, and the tax optimization strategies you developed are going to improve our cash flow by at least $35,000 annually, while also providing better depreciation benefits and estate planning advantages. Marcus's genuine excitement about the financial improvements I'd been able to implement had been deeply gratifying, reflecting the kind of intellectual respect and professional appreciation that had characterized our partnership during its golden period. He'd asked detailed questions about my financing strategies, had shown genuine interest in learning about commercial real estate techniques and market analysis methods, and had expressed pride in having a mother with such sophisticated professional expertise and industry recognition. Jessica had been equally appreciative of my real estate contributions, expressing amazement at the optimization opportunities I'd identified and the systematic improvements I'd been able to implement in their previously disorganized and inefficient property management operations. Eleanor, your real estate experience has already saved us more money than Marcus made in his first 3 years in commercial real estate, Jessica had said as we'd reviewed the results of my initial portfolio analysis and management system development. I had no idea that proper real estate management and strategic financing could have such a significant impact on our actual net worth and monthly cash flow. You're essentially giving us a substantial income increase without us having to acquire additional properties or take on more debt. Jessica's recognition of the monetary value of my contributions had been important validation, especially since her background in finance and business analysis had given her credibility in assessing the sophistication and effectiveness of real estate management strategies and investment optimization techniques. The success of my initial financing, restructuring, and portfolio optimization projects had encouraged Marcus and Jessica to request increasingly comprehensive real estate management services, and I'd gladly expanded my involvement to include acquisition analysis, development opportunity evaluation, and comprehensive business planning that had required my full range of real estate expertise and industry knowledge. My second major project had been developing investment strategies that would coordinate their individual career goals with opportunities for strategic property acquisitions that could provide both immediate cash flow benefits and long-term wealth-building advantages. The project had required extensive research into market trends, financing options, and risk management strategies that would support both short-term income generation and long-term asset appreciation while maintaining appropriate diversification and liquidity for changing circumstances and opportunities. Eleanor, your investment recommendations and market analysis have generated returns that are significantly better than what our previous real estate advisor was achieving, Marcus had reported after 8 months of implementing my acquisition and portfolio management strategies. And the strategic planning coordination you developed has improved our overall real estate performance by over $73,000 this year, compared to what we would have achieved with independent property management and separate investment decision-making. The investment success had been particularly satisfying because it had demonstrated that my decades of real estate experience had provided expertise that went far beyond basic property management to include sophisticated wealth-building strategies and market analysis capabilities that most families never had access to unless they could afford expensive private real estate advisory services. My third major contribution had been identifying and structuring a complex commercial development opportunity in Ontario that had required coordinating multiple financing sources, navigating challenging zoning and permitting requirements, and managing relationships with contractors, city officials, and potential tenants throughout an 18-month development timeline. The project had required applying my complete range of real estate expertise to help Marcus and Jessica pursue their most ambitious development project while maintaining appropriate risk management and financial controls. Mom, the commercial development project you structured and managed for us has transformed our entire approach to real estate investment, Jessica had told me during one of our regular family business review meetings. Your industry relationships and development expertise allowed us to complete a project that would have been impossible for us to handle independently, and the returns are exceeding our projections by over 40%. This success has established our reputation and provided capital for even larger future opportunities. The commercial development project had been particularly meaningful because it had demonstrated how my decades of industry experience and professional relationships could be leveraged to create opportunities and achieve results that Marcus and Jessica could never have accomplished independently, regardless of their education, enthusiasm, or access to capital. During this golden period of our real estate partnership, Marcus and Jessica had consistently expressed gratitude for my contributions while also demonstrating respect for my expertise and judgment in ways that had made me feel valued, appreciated, and genuinely needed, rather than taken for granted, exploited, or treated as a convenient resource whose services could be assumed without appropriate appreciation or reciprocal consideration. Mom, having access to your real estate expertise and established portfolio is like having a private commercial real estate firm dedicated specifically to our family's success, Marcus had said during one particularly memorable family dinner celebrating our partnership's first anniversary. Most people our age are struggling with basic property investment decisions while trying to build their careers and manage other responsibilities. We have the enormous advantage of professional-level real estate guidance, established industry, relationships, and access to your portfolio that's allowing us to optimize everything and build wealth much faster than would otherwise be possible. Marcus's recognition of the competitive advantage provided by my expertise had been accompanied by practical expressions of appreciation that had demonstrated genuine understanding of the substantial value I was providing to our family's real estate operations. Rather than treating my services as family obligations or reasonable expectations, they'd regularly acknowledged the professional-level value of my contributions and had made efforts to ensure I felt respected, appreciated, and properly compensated for my time, expertise, and ongoing management responsibilities. During the golden period, our family dinners had become regular celebrations of shared real estate success and mutual appreciation. Marcus and Jessica had regularly invited me to present detailed reports about our portfolio performance, market analysis findings, and strategic opportunities, treating my expertise as a source of family pride and competitive advantage rather than a burden, assumption, or something they were entitled to receive without appropriate acknowledgement. I love our family real estate review meetings, Jessica had said during one particularly successful quarter when our coordinated investment strategies had generated returns that had exceeded our projections by over 25%. Eleanor's expertise gives us confidence that we're making smart decisions and taking advantage of opportunities that most families miss entirely. Her market knowledge and industry relationships provide access to deals and financing that wouldn't be available through conventional real estate channels. These family business discussions had provided opportunities for me to share not just performance results and financial updates, but also the strategic thinking, market analysis, and relationship management that had informed my investment decisions and development recommendations. Marcus and Jessica had been genuinely interested in learning about real estate principles, investment strategies, and property management techniques that would enhance their own knowledge while also improving their understanding of wealth-building principles and market dynamics. Eleanor has such sophisticated understanding of real estate markets and development processes, one of Marcus's business associates had observed after joining us for dinner and hearing about our family partnership coordination. Most families never have access to that level of expertise and industry relationships. Marcus and Jessica are incredibly fortunate to have someone with professional real estate experience managing their investment strategies and development opportunities. These professional acknowledgments of my expertise had been personally satisfying, while also contributing to Marcus and Jessica's business reputations within their respective industries. Their colleagues and clients had been impressed by the sophistication of their real estate investments and the quality of their property management, often requesting referrals to real estate advisors without realizing that their apparent expertise had resulted from having a retired real estate development executive managing their family's property operations. Marcus had often used professional networking events and industry conferences to express pride in my expertise and my contributions to their real estate success, presenting me as an example of successful career achievement and multi-generational wealth building that other families could aspire to emulate if they were fortunate enough to have family members with relevant professional expertise and industry experience. My mother spent 50 years in Southern California real estate, building Martinez Property Development into one of the most respected small-scale development companies in the Inland Empire, Marcus had explained to curious colleagues and potential business partners. Her expertise has been invaluable in helping Jessica and me optimize our investment strategies, identify development opportunities, and build wealth more effectively than we could have managed independently. Having professional-level real estate guidance within the family has been an enormous competitive advantage. During this golden period of our partnership, Marcus and Jessica had also been careful to ensure that our business coordination enhanced rather than diminished my independence, financial security, and personal autonomy. Rather than treating my involvement as an opportunity to control my assets or limit my decision-making authority, they'd structured our arrangements to provide me with enhanced flexibility, additional income streams, and expanded opportunities, while maintaining appropriate boundaries and respect for my individual financial goals and personal preferences. The partnership structure we'd established had included multiple components designed to address different types of real estate activities and investment objectives. The primary partnership had been used for coordinating major acquisitions, development projects, and portfolio management that benefited from centralized oversight, shared resources, and strategic coordination. Secondary arrangements had been designated for smaller investments, property improvement projects, and specialized opportunities that required collaborative planning but maintained individual ownership and management authority. But I'd also maintained completely independent properties and investment accounts for my personal real estate activities, discretionary investments, and individual financial goals that weren't subject to partnership coordination or shared decision-making. Marcus and Jessica had explicitly supported my real estate independence and had regularly encouraged me to pursue personal investment objectives that reflected my individual preferences, risk tolerance, and legacy planning priorities. Mom, we want to make sure our partnership enhances your independence and provides additional opportunities rather than limiting your autonomy or constraining your personal investment decisions, Marcus had said during one of our strategic planning sessions. The goal is to optimize our combined resources and coordinate our major investments while ensuring everyone maintains complete control over their personal financial decisions and individual real estate goals. The respect for my real estate independence had been accompanied by practical support for my individual goals and interests, including encouragement for discretionary investments, property improvement projects, and real estate activities that had reflected my personal preferences and professional interests, rather than partnership priorities or shared family objectives. During this period, Marcus and Jessica had also been explicitly supportive of my social activities and community involvement, understanding that my professional reputation and industry relationships were valuable assets that should be maintained and leveraged rather than neglected or dismissed due to retirement status or assumptions about reduced capability or relevance. My continued involvement in real estate industry organizations, professional networking events, and community development programs had been encouraged and supported as activities that maintained my professional credibility while also providing networking opportunities and market intelligence that could benefit our family's real estate interests and investment strategies. Eleanor's professional relationships and industry knowledge are valuable assets that benefit our entire family, Jessica had observed during one of our strategic planning discussions. Her reputation in the real estate community provides us with access to opportunities, financing relationships, and market intelligence that would be impossible to obtain through conventional channels or commercial real estate services. The golden period had also been characterized by collaborative planning for major real estate decisions that affected our entire family's long-term security, wealth-building objectives, and strategic positioning within Southern California's competitive real estate markets. Rather than making unilateral decisions or simply implementing my recommendations without discussion and input, Marcus and Jessica had insisted on comprehensive consultation and collaborative decision-making that had respected my expertise while also incorporating their perspectives, preferences, and long-term goals. One of our most successful collaborative projects had been developing a comprehensive estate planning strategy that had coordinated tax minimization, wealth transfer planning, and succession arrangements in ways that had optimized benefits for multiple generations while maintaining flexibility for changing circumstances market conditions, and family objectives. Mom, your expertise in real estate development and wealth management is helping us build financial security that will benefit not just us, but potentially future generations, Marcus had said during our estate planning discussions. The strategies you're developing will ensure that our family's real estate wealth continues to grow and provide opportunities for children and grandchildren we haven't even had yet. The estate planning project had been particularly meaningful because it had demonstrated Marcus and Jessica's commitment to long-term family wealth building and multi-generational thinking, rather than just immediate benefit maximization or short-term profit focus. Their willingness to invest time, resources, and careful planning in sophisticated arrangements that might not provide immediate returns had reflected genuine appreciation for wealth-building principles and family financial responsibility. Our collaborative real estate management had also extended to major property acquisitions and development decisions that required coordination between individual preferences, partnership objectives, and our family's overall investment strategies and risk management principles. Rather than making independent decisions that might conflict with our coordinated strategies or compromise our collective objectives, we developed consultation processes that had ensured major real estate activities supported our shared goals, while respecting individual autonomy and personal preferences. The acquisition of the Newport Beach office building that had become Marcus's business headquarters had been our first major test of collaborative real estate decision-making, requiring coordination between their workspace needs, my financing expertise, and our family's overall investment strategies and portfolio diversification objectives. The project had required extensive market analysis, financing optimization, and long-term planning that had demonstrated the benefits of coordinated family real estate management and strategic thinking. Eleanor's real estate expertise made the difference between getting our ideal office space and settling for something much less suitable and profitable, Marcus had explained to business associates who'd been impressed by their successful real estate acquisition and the sophistication of their financing arrangements. Her knowledge of commercial real estate and her industry relationships allowed us to secure terms and opportunities that wouldn't have been available through conventional commercial real estate channels. The office building project had been particularly successful because it had demonstrated how my professional relationships and expertise could be leveraged to achieve objectives that would have been difficult or impossible for Marcus and Jessica to accomplish independently, regardless of their business success, professional credentials, or access to capital and financing. By the spring of 2022, our family real estate partnership had achieved results that had exceeded even our most optimistic projections. Our combined portfolio performance had outperformed market benchmarks, our strategic acquisitions had generated substantial equity growth, and our overall financial position had improved dramatically compared to what any of us could have achieved through independent real estate management and separate investment decision-making. The success of our real estate partnership had also contributed to enhanced lifestyle opportunities and business advantages for everyone involved. Marcus's commercial real estate business had benefited from improved financing access and industry relationships that had allowed him to pursue larger projects and more demanding clients. Jessica's consulting practice had expanded significantly due to the professional credibility and financial stability that had resulted from our successful real estate coordination and wealth-building achievements. My own financial situation had improved substantially due to coordinated investment strategies and strategic planning that had maximized the efficiency of my portfolio performance while also providing opportunities for continued wealth building, enhanced cash flow, and discretionary investments that would support long-term security and lifestyle preferences for travel, cultural activities, and community involvement. Our family real estate partnership has been successful beyond anything I imagined when we started this process, I'd noted during our second anniversary review meeting. Everyone's financial situation has improved substantially. We've achieved investment objectives that would have been impossible independently, and we've built systems and relationships that will continue generating benefits and opportunities for years to come. The anniversary review had been a celebration of mutual success and shared accomplishment that had reinforced everyone's commitment to continued collaboration, strategic coordination, and optimization of our family's real estate potential. Marcus and Jessica had expressed genuine gratitude for my contributions, while also acknowledging that their own commitment to our partnership strategies and their respect for my expertise had been essential for achieving our collective success and building sustainable wealth. "Mom, this partnership has been transformative for our entire family," Marcus had said during the anniversary celebration dinner. "Your expertise has accelerated our wealth building by years, maybe decades, compared to what we could have achieved independently. But more importantly, working together has strengthened our family relationships and given us shared goals and achievements that benefit everyone while honoring your contributions and expertise." The family relationship enhancement had been an unexpected but deeply meaningful benefit of our real estate coordination. Rather than creating stress, conflict, or competition, our collaborative business management had provided regular opportunities for positive interaction, shared problem-solving, and mutual appreciation that had enriched our family dynamics in ways that had extended far beyond financial results and business success. By the fall of 2022, our family real estate partnership had reached what I now recognize as its peak effectiveness and harmony, with regular coordination that had produced consistently excellent results, while maintaining appropriate respect for individual autonomy and family relationships that had seemed to validate all the effort, expertise, and trust I'd invested in building strong intergenerational wealth management and business collaboration. Family dinners had become celebrations of shared real estate achievement and collaborative planning that had included sophisticated conversations about market analysis, investment strategies, and wealth-building principles that had demonstrated the intellectual engagement and mutual respect that had characterized our partnership during this golden period. "I love our family real estate discussions," Marcus had said during one particularly successful quarter. "They combine professional-level expertise with family commitment in ways that make investment decisions both effective and personally meaningful. Having these conversations with you makes Jessica and me better at real estate analysis, while also strengthening our family relationships and shared commitment to building something lasting together." The mutual satisfaction with our real estate coordination had seemed genuine and sustainable, providing the foundation for long-term family wealth building that would support everyone's individual goals while maintaining strong collaborative relationships and shared commitment to continued success, optimization, and multi-generational thinking. Looking back now, I realize that this golden period had represented the peak of Marcus and Jessica's genuine respect for my expertise and appreciation for my contributions, before their perspective had begun shifting toward viewing my real estate services as entitlements rather than valuable professional contributions that deserved recognition. Reciprocal respect and appropriate consideration for my time, expertise, and ongoing commitment to our family's success. The transition from partnership to exploitation had been so gradual that I'd initially missed the warning signs, interpreting their increasing demands and decreasing acknowledgement as natural evolution of our working relationship, rather than evidence of a systematic shift toward taking my contributions for granted, while expecting increased availability and service without corresponding appreciation, compensation, or basic human consideration. But standing in my Pasadena home office that August morning, reviewing the subtle but persistent changes in their attitudes and expectations, I was beginning to understand that the golden period of our real estate partnership had ended, and that Marcus and Jessica's true feelings about my contributions and my value as a family member were about to be revealed in ways that would change our family dynamics forever. Sometimes the people who seem most appreciative of your expertise are actually calculating how to maximize their benefit while minimizing their obligations to show respect, gratitude, and consideration. Marcus and Jessica were about to learn that the woman they'd begun taking for granted was actually someone with the real estate expertise, property ownership, and professional determination to ensure they regretted ever treating her contributions as entitlements rather than valuable services deserving of appreciation and respect. Standing in my Pasadena home office that August morning, still processing the mounting disrespect and casual dismissal I'd been experiencing from Marcus and Jessica, over the past 8 months, I felt the last fragments of my trust in their character and gratitude crumbling away. But what I discovered when that scorching afternoon's events unfolded would transform my disappointment and frustration into a cold, calculating determination that would change everything forever and demonstrate that some 70-year-old women fight back with consequences that reshape entire family dynamics and financial futures. The breaking point had been building for months through a series of incidents that had gradually revealed Marcus and Jessica's true feelings about my contributions and their growing assumption that my real estate expertise was something they were entitled to rather than a valuable service I'd been providing out of family loyalty, professional pride, and genuine commitment to building multi-generational wealth for our family's benefit. The shift had begun subtly in the fall of 2022, when Marcus's commercial real estate business had achieved significant expansion, and Jessica's consulting practice had secured several Fortune 500 clients. Their professional success, which had been significantly accelerated by the real estate optimization, financing advantages, and industry connections I'd provided, had somehow translated into decreased appreciation for my contributions rather than increased gratitude for the foundation I'd helped them build. "Mom, we've been discussing our real estate partnership, and Jessica and I think we need to restructure some of our arrangements to reflect our increased business sophistication and professional responsibilities," Marcus had said during what should have been a routine family dinner in October. "We're grateful for everything you've done to help us get established, but we're reaching a point where we need more autonomous control over our real estate operations and investment decision-making." The language shift from collaboration to arrangements and from partnership to autonomous control had been immediate and unmistakable, representing a complete reversal of the mutual respect and shared decision-making that had characterized our golden period. Gone was the appreciation for my expertise and acknowledgement of my contributions. In its place was the kind of dismissive attitude that suggested they'd decided my involvement was no longer necessary now that they'd achieved the success my management and guidance had made possible. "Marcus, I'm not sure I understand what you mean by restructuring," I'd replied, trying to keep my voice calm despite the surge of concern I'd felt at this sudden change in attitude and approach. "Our current partnership has been generating excellent results for everyone. What specific changes are you thinking about, and why do you feel they're necessary?" Jessica had immediately joined the discussion, her tone carrying the kind of condescending patience typically reserved for explaining simple concepts to people who weren't quite capable of understanding complex business matters or modern real estate strategies. "Eleanor, we appreciate everything you've taught us about real estate management and investment analysis," Jessica had said, her voice carrying false warmth that had made her dismissal even more insulting and hurtful. "But Marcus and I have learned enough from working with you that we're confident we can handle most of our real estate operations independently now. We don't want to continue imposing on your time and energy for routine property management tasks that we should be handling ourselves." The phrase "imposing on your time" had been particularly offensive, given that managing our family's real estate empire had been my primary source of purpose, intellectual engagement, and professional satisfaction since retiring from active development. They hadn't been imposing on me. They'd been providing me with meaningful work that had utilized my decades of expertise while contributing significantly to our family's continued success and wealth building. But more disturbing than their dismissive language had been the specific changes they'd proposed, which would have eliminated my involvement in their most important real estate decisions while maintaining my responsibility for routine administrative tasks that required time and effort, but provided no intellectual satisfaction, strategic input, or recognition of my professional-level expertise. "We'd like you to continue handling basic property management coordination and routine maintenance scheduling," Marcus had explained. "But Jessica and I want to take direct control of acquisition decisions, development planning, and major financing arrangements. We feel like we're ready to handle those responsibilities without consultation or oversight. The proposal had been a calculated insult disguised as professional development and business maturity. They'd wanted to retain access to my administrative services and routine property management, while eliminating my authority over the strategic decisions that had been generating superior results and had required my most sophisticated expertise, industry relationships, and decades of market knowledge. Marcus, I'm concerned that this approach might not serve your best interests or protect the portfolio we've built together, I'd responded, trying to maintain professional objectivity despite my growing anger and disappointment. The strategic coordination and optimization we've been implementing requires comprehensive oversight and expertise that takes decades to develop. Fragmenting the decision-making process could reduce effectiveness, increase risks, and compromise the performance. That's been benefiting everyone. But Marcus and Jessica had been prepared for my objections, responding with what was clearly a coordinated strategy designed to position them as mature professionals who'd outgrown their need for family assistance, in contrast to my supposedly overprotective resistance to their independence and business development. Mom, we understand your concerns, but Jessica and I are successful professionals with advanced education and significant experience managing complex real estate transactions, Marcus had said, using his business training to present their position as reasonable and my resistance as evidence of controlling behavior, rather than legitimate concern about preserving successful strategies. We're grateful for your guidance during our early partnership development, but we need to take full responsibility for our own real estate decisions now. The suggestion that my resistance to their poorly conceived restructuring was evidence of controlling behavior rather than professional concern about protecting valuable assets and successful strategies had been so manipulative and unfair that I'd left the dinner without responding, returning to my home with a mixture of hurt and determination that had made sleep impossible. Over the following months, Marcus and Jessica's attitude toward my real estate contributions had continued to deteriorate systematically, even as they'd maintained their expectation that I would continue providing administrative services, emergency assistance, and immediate help with complex problems whenever they encountered difficulties or needed urgent support with challenging situations. By January 2024, they'd been treating me like an on-call property management assistant rather than a respected family member and business partner, making demands for immediate service while showing no appreciation for the expertise, time, and effort required to maintain their real estate operations effectively and profitably. Eleanor, I need you to coordinate emergency repairs at the Riverside property by noon today, Jessica would call to say, without any acknowledgement that such requests required considerable time, contractor coordination, and attention to detail to process correctly and cost-effectively. The tenant is threatening to break the lease if this isn't handled immediately, so I hope you can take care of it this morning. The casual assumption that I would drop everything to handle their urgent property management needs, combined with their complete lack of appreciation or acknowledgement of the complexity involved in coordinating quality repairs, managing contractor relationships, and ensuring cost-effective solutions, had reflected their transformation from grateful family members to entitled employers who expected service without showing respect or consideration. Even more frustrating had been their tendency to blame me when their independent real estate decisions had produced poor results, despite their insistence on making those decisions without my input, consultation, or strategic oversight. When Marcus's attempt to optimize their investment allocation had resulted in a $67,000 loss during a market downturn that I'd predicted and had warned them about, rather than acknowledging their mistake or requesting my analysis for future decisions, they'd suggested that my conservative approach had made them overly cautious about pursuing necessary growth strategies and market opportunities. Eleanor, we think your influence has made us too risk-averse, Marcus had said during a particularly frustrating conversation about their investment losses. We need to be more aggressive about pursuing growth opportunities and market timing, even if that means accepting higher volatility and occasional losses. The irony that their aggressive strategy had lost more money in 6 months than my conservative approach had ever lost in any 2-year period had been completely lost on them, as had the fact that my risk management strategies had been specifically designed to prevent exactly the kind of unnecessary losses they'd just experienced through overconfidence and poor market timing. But the most devastating aspect of their evolving attitude had been the way they'd begun treating my age and retirement, status as evidence of declining competence rather than accumulated wisdom, experience, and proven track record of superior performance. Comments about keeping up with modern real estate technology and understanding contemporary market conditions had become increasingly common, despite the fact that my investment performance had consistently outperformed their independent decisions. "Mom, I know you have a lot of experience with traditional real estate development," Marcus had said during one particularly condescending conversation. "But Jessica and I are dealing with real estate technologies and investment strategies. That might be different from what you're familiar with from your career." The suggestion that my 50 years of real estate experience hadn't included exposure to modern concepts had been both insulting and demonstrably false, given that my management of their properties had consistently generated superior results, using exactly the kind of sophisticated strategies they'd claimed I couldn't understand or implement effectively. The deterioration of their respect and appreciation had reached a crisis point in early July, when they'd informed me that they were planning to streamline our partnership arrangements by eliminating most of the joint property ownership and transferring primary management responsibility to a professional real estate management firm that could provide contemporary property oversight and investment services. "Eleanor, we've decided to engage Meridian Property Management to handle our primary real estate portfolio," Jessica had announced during what I'd expected to be a routine quarterly review meeting. "They specialize in high-net-worth real estate, investors, and can provide services that are more aligned with our current needs and long-term goals." The decision to replace my expertise with an expensive property management firm, after 4 years of superior performance and substantial savings compared to professional service costs, had been the ultimate demonstration of their ingratitude and disrespect. They'd been willing to pay substantial fees to strangers rather than continue working with a family member whose expertise had been generating consistently excellent results. "Jessica, I'm curious about the reasoning behind this decision," I'd said, trying to maintain professional composure despite my shock and hurt. "Our current real estate performance has been excellent, our costs have been minimal, and our coordination has been generating substantial benefits for everyone. What specific advantages do you expect from this change?" Marcus had been prepared, with a list of justifications that had revealed the depth of their disrespect and their complete misunderstanding of the value I'd been providing to our family's real estate operations. "Mom, we need property managers who understand our professional situations and can provide specialized services for high-income real estate investors," Marcus had explained. "Meridian has expertise in commercial property management and investment, analysis that might be more relevant than traditional development experience." The implication that my traditional development experience was somehow less relevant than the generic property management services offered by Meridian had been both insulting and factually incorrect. My analysis of Meridian's track record had shown that their investment performance was significantly inferior to what I'd been achieving, and their fee structure would have cost Marcus and Jessica over $89,000 annually for services I'd been providing, at no charge while generating superior results. But the most shocking revelation had been their assumption that our joint property ownership arrangements could be terminated unilaterally, without consultation or consideration of the legal and practical implications of such changes for my own financial security and investment objectives. "We'll need you to sign documentation transferring property ownership to our individual names," Marcus had said, producing legal papers that had obviously been prepared in advance without my knowledge or input. "Meridian will be establishing new investment structures that will replace our current joint ownership arrangements. The casual assumption that I would simply agree to eliminate property ownership arrangements that had taken years to optimize, without any discussion of alternatives or consideration of my own interests and objectives, had revealed the complete extent of their selfishness and disrespect for my contributions and legal rights. That evening, I'd made several phone calls that would form the foundation of my investigation into exactly what Marcus and Jessica had been planning behind my back. And what I'd discovered had been far more shocking than anything I could have imagined. My first call had been to Carmen Rodriguez, a private investigator I'd known through real estate industry connections, who specialized in financial fraud and family exploitation cases. Carmen had extensive experience documenting systematic financial abuse and had been recommended by several colleagues who'd faced similar family betrayals. "Mrs. Martinez," Carmen had said after I'd explained the situation, "what you're describing sounds like a classic case of financial elder exploitation disguised as family business planning. Let me research their recent activities and see what we can discover about their actual intentions and any steps they might have taken without your knowledge or consent." My second call had been to Patricia Gonzalez, an elder law attorney whose expertise in real estate disputes and financial abuse cases had been recommended by my longtime legal advisor. Patricia specialized in protecting seniors from family members who attempted to exploit their resources or manipulate their property arrangements for personal benefit. "Eleanor, the pattern you're describing suggests systematic planning to eliminate your control over properties you've been managing while maintaining access to the benefits of your expertise," Patricia had said. "This kind of behavior often escalates, and I'd recommend documenting everything while we investigate the full scope of their planning and any legal steps they might have taken." My third call had been to my former colleague Roberto Chen, who'd retired as Senior Vice President of Commercial Real Estate at Wells Fargo, and who maintained extensive connections throughout the Southern California real estate and banking community. Roberto had access to information systems and professional networks that could provide insights into property transactions and financing activities that might not be visible through normal channels. "Eleanor, I'll make some discreet inquiries and see what I can learn about any new property registrations or financing arrangements," Roberto had said. "If they're planning to restructure your joint properties, there should be documentation and preliminary activities that we can identify through industry channels and public records." Within 72 hours, my investigation team had uncovered evidence of planning and preparation that had been far more extensive and systematic than I'd realized. Marcus and Jessica hadn't just been considering changes to our property arrangements, they'd been implementing a comprehensive plan to eliminate my ownership while retaining access to the properties I'd spent decades acquiring and developing. Carmen had discovered that Marcus and Jessica had established new property management accounts with Meridian 6 weeks earlier, had transferred $347,000 from our joint business account without my knowledge, and had been systematically moving assets out of accounts where I had oversight authority and legal protection. "Mrs. Martinez, they've been planning this transition for months," Carmen had reported. "The timing and coordination suggests they've been developing this strategy since at least April, possibly longer. They've been very careful to maintain legal compliance while systematically reducing your access and control over properties you legally co-own." Patricia had discovered that Marcus and Jessica had consulted with estate planning attorneys about terminating joint property ownership and had researched legal strategies for limiting family members' access to real estate assets that had been accumulated through collaborative management and shared investment. "Eleanor, they've been researching your legal rights and looking for ways to minimize your ability to object to or interfere with their plans," Patricia had reported. "The legal consultation records suggest they've been treating this as an adversarial situation rather than a family business discussion, which raises serious concerns about their intentions and methods." But the most shocking discovery had been Roberto's research into their Meridian property management arrangements. The new accounts had been structured specifically to exclude me from any oversight or consultation role, despite the fact that a significant portion of the properties being transferred had been acquired through my expertise and had included my own investment capital and legal ownership interests. "Eleanor, They've essentially stolen your property management strategies and are implementing them through Meridian while cutting you out of any decision-making or benefit sharing, Roberto had reported. The account structures they've created mirror the optimization strategies you developed, but they've eliminated your access and authority while maintaining the benefits of your planning and industry relationships. Armed with this information, I'd realized that Marcus and Jessica's professional independence had actually been a coordinated plan to exploit my expertise while eliminating my control, essentially stealing the property management strategies I'd developed while discarding the family member who'd created them. But the final straw, the incident that would transform my hurt and disappointment into cold, calculating determination, had occurred on August 18, 2024, during what would become known in our family history as the 405 Freeway incident. I'd been experiencing severe chest pains and shortness of breath that afternoon while working in my home office, symptoms that had been concerning enough that I'd called Marcus to ask if he could drive me to the emergency room for evaluation. At 70, with a family history of heart disease and recent stress from our deteriorating family relationship, such symptoms required immediate medical attention, and I'd been nervous about driving myself while experiencing potential cardiac symptoms. Marcus, I'm having some serious chest pain and I'm having trouble breathing, I'd called to tell him. I think I should go to the hospital right away, but I'm not sure I should be driving. Could you possibly drive me to Cedars-Sinai or meet me there? Marcus's response had been the kind of casual dismissal that had revealed the complete extent of his changed attitude toward me and my well-being, treating my potential medical emergency as an inconvenient interruption of his business schedule rather than a serious situation requiring immediate family support. Mom, Jessica, and I have a major client presentation at 4 p.m. with some investors from San Francisco, Marcus had replied, his tone suggesting that my potential medical emergency was secondary to their business obligations. Can't you just call an ambulance if you think it's serious? Or maybe wait until after 6 p.m. when we're done with our meeting? The suggestion that I should either call an ambulance for what might be a minor issue or ignore potentially serious cardiac symptoms because they had a business meeting had been so callous and selfish that I'd been temporarily speechless. Marcus, I don't think chest pain at my age can wait until evening, I'd said, trying to keep my voice steady despite my shock at his indifference. This could be serious. I really think I need medical evaluation now. But Marcus had been unmoved by my concerns, offering only the most minimal assistance while making clear that my medical needs were secondary to their business success and client relationships. Mom, if you really think it's urgent, you could drive yourself to Cedars-Sinai and I'll try to meet you there after our presentation if it runs short, Marcus had said. But honestly, you're probably just stressed about the property management changes we've been discussing. Maybe you should just rest this afternoon and see how you feel tomorrow. The casual dismissal of my symptoms as stress-related, combined with the suggestion that I should drive myself to the hospital while experiencing potential cardiac symptoms, had revealed a level of callousness that I'd never imagined possible from my own son. But I'd been desperate enough for medical evaluation that I'd agreed to drive myself, heading toward Cedars-Sinai Medical Center while experiencing ongoing chest discomfort and hoping that Marcus would indeed meet me at the hospital as promised. The drive had been terrifying and dangerous, as I'd struggled with physical symptoms, while navigating Los Angeles traffic and worrying about what would happen if my condition worsened while I was alone and far from help. Other drivers had noticed my erratic driving and had honked or gestured, highlighting just how unsafe it had been for me to be driving while experiencing medical symptoms. Halfway to the hospital, while stopped in traffic on the 405 freeway near the Getty Center, my symptoms had worsened dramatically. My chest pain had intensified, my breathing had become more labored, and I'd begun feeling dizzy and disoriented in ways that had made continuing to drive impossible and potentially dangerous to other motorists. I'd managed to pull over to the shoulder of the freeway and had called 911, explaining my situation and requesting emergency medical assistance. But I'd also called Marcus to inform him of the emergency and ask him to meet me at whatever hospital the ambulance would transport me to. Marcus, I had to pull over on the 405. My symptoms got worse and I called 911. They're sending an ambulance, I'd told him, my voice weak and shaky from the combination of physical distress and fear. But Marcus's response had been the final revelation that would change everything forever, demonstrating a level of selfishness and callousness that had shattered any remaining illusions about his character or his feelings toward me. Mom, we're literally walking into our presentation right now. This is a $2.3 million development deal that could transform our business, Marcus had said, his voice carrying annoyance rather than concern about my medical emergency. Since you called 911, the paramedics will take care of you? Can't you handle this without me? We probably won't be done here until 8 or 9 p.m. The suggestion that I should handle a medical emergency alone on the side of a freeway because their business presentation was more important than my health and safety had been so shocking and cruel that I'd been unable to respond immediately. Marcus, I'm 70 years old and I'm having chest pain on the side of a freeway, I'd said, my voice shaking with a combination of physical weakness and emotional devastation. I'm scared and I need family support. This isn't something I should be handling alone. But Marcus had been unmoved by my fear and medical needs, offering only the most grudging and inadequate assistance while making clear that my emergency was an inconvenience he was unwilling to accommodate. Mom, you're 70 years old, not 90. You should be able to handle talking to doctors and making medical decisions independently, Marcus had said with finality. If it's really serious, they'll keep you overnight and we can visit tomorrow after work. The casual abandonment of a 70-year-old mother on the side of the 405 freeway during a medical emergency had been the ultimate demonstration of selfishness and ingratitude that had revealed the complete breakdown of family loyalty and basic human decency. Sitting in the ambulance 20 minutes later while paramedics monitored my vital signs and prepared for transport to Cedars-Sinai, I'd realized that Marcus and Jessica's real estate betrayal had been just the beginning of a much deeper betrayal of family values and basic respect. But I'd also realized something else. The 70-year-old woman they'd abandoned on the freeway was someone with 50 years of real estate expertise, complete legal access to all their properties, and detailed knowledge of every aspect of their real estate operations that they'd been planning to steal. That evening, while Marcus and Jessica had been celebrating their business success with expensive dinner and client entertainment, I'd been making phone calls from my hospital bed that would restructure their entire real estate world in ways they'd never see coming. My first call had been to Roberto Chen, activating real estate relationships and professional connections that I'd maintained throughout my retirement. Roberto, I need to execute some property transactions first thing tomorrow morning, I'd said from my hospital bed while monitoring equipment had recorded my vital signs. I'm implementing some family real estate restructuring that requires immediate action and complete confidentiality. My second call had been to Patricia Gonzalez, initiating legal documentation that would protect my actions and ensure that everything I was planning would be completely legal and irreversible. Patricia, I'm implementing the property protection strategies we discussed, I'd said. I need documentation prepared immediately that will formalize my rights and authorities regarding joint property ownership and management. My third call had been to Carmen Rodriguez, initiating the final phase of our investigation, while also beginning implementation of consequences that would teach Marcus and Jessica exactly what happened when people abandoned family members who controlled their real estate security. Carmen, we're moving to implementation phase, I'd said. I want documentation of tonight's incident while we execute the property restructuring we discussed. The next morning, August 19, 2024, while Marcus and Jessica had been sleeping off their celebration of business success and client entertainment, I'd been implementing the most comprehensive real estate lesson they would ever receive about the consequences of betraying someone with my expertise and legal access to properties worth over $8 million. At 8 a.m., I'd walked into the offices of Stewart Title Company, where I'd been welcomed by colleagues and former clients who remembered my 50-year career and were eager to assist with whatever real estate services I required. Mrs. Martinez, it's wonderful to see you, the senior escrow officer had said. How can we help you today? I need to execute property transfers and restructure some joint ownership arrangements, I'd replied. I'll be transferring several properties from joint ownership to individual ownership under my sole control. The primary commercial property in Newport Beach, worth $2.3 million and serving as Marcus's business headquarters, had been my first target. As the primary owner with full legal authority over property decisions, I'd had complete discretion to restructure ownership as I deemed appropriate. I'll be transferring this commercial property from joint ownership to my individual ownership, I'd explained to the title officer handling my transactions. Please ensure that all related parties are notified of the ownership transfer and that new title documentation reflects sole ownership under my name. The Riverside apartment complex, containing 12 units worth an additional $1.8 million, had been next. Again, my legal authority as primary owner had provided complete discretion over property management and ownership restructuring. The Ontario development property that Marcus and Jessica had been planning to build their largest project on had contained the most value, a 5-acre parcel worth $3.1 million, with approved development permits for a 47-unit residential complex. By 11:30 a.m., I'd successfully transferred $8.2 million in real estate assets from joint ownership arrangements that Marcus and Jessica had been planning to restructure without my consultation, moving all properties to individual ownership, where they would be protected from any future attempts at manipulation or unauthorized control. The final step had been establishing new property management arrangements that would ensure the real estate I'd accumulated through 50 years of expertise would continue to be optimized while remaining completely outside Marcus and Jessica's access or influence. Mrs. Martinez, these new ownership arrangements will provide you with complete autonomy over your real estate portfolio while maintaining the optimization strategies you've developed, my new property manager had confirmed. The properties will be managed according to your specifications with no external access or oversight. But the property restructuring had been just the beginning of the consequences Marcus and Jessica would face for their betrayal and abandonment. By August 22nd, when Marcus and Jessica had expected to finalize their Meridian property management arrangements and had discovered that all joint properties had been transferred and were no longer available for their management or control, their frantic phone calls had begun. "Mom, what happened to our joint properties?" Marcus had called, his voice carrying panic rather than the entitled dismissal that had characterized our recent conversations. "Meridian is saying that the properties they were expecting to manage have been transferred to individual ownership and are no longer part of our partnership arrangements. Marcus, I restructured our property arrangements in accordance with my legal rights as primary owner," I'd replied calmly from my new oceanfront condo in Malibu that I'd been able to purchase immediately with proceeds from refinancing properties that had been freed from partnership restrictions. "Since you and Jessica decided that my real estate management expertise was no longer needed, I've implemented independent arrangements that will better serve my interests." Jessica's response had been even more desperate, as she'd realized that their business headquarters and development projects had also been restructured in ways that had eliminated their access to properties they'd assumed would always be available. "Eleanor, you can't just transfer our business properties without discussion," Jessica had protested during a frantic phone call. "Those properties are essential for our commercial operations. We have client commitments and development projects that depend on access to those properties. Jessica, those properties were acquired through my real estate expertise and were owned according to legal arrangements that gave me complete authority over ownership decisions," I'd replied. "Since you determined that your professional independence was more important than our family collaboration, I've simply implemented arrangements that reflect your stated preferences." The immediate real estate impact on Marcus and Jessica had been devastating and comprehensive. Without access to the commercial property that had served as their business headquarters, they'd faced immediate operational problems that had threatened client relationships and business operations. Without the development property in Ontario, They'd lost their largest planned project and the $2.3 million investor deal they'd been celebrating, but the longer-term consequences had been even more severe. The property management strategies I'd been implementing had been generating returns that had significantly exceeded market performance, and without my management, their remaining real estate investments had immediately deteriorated. Within 6 months, Marcus and Jessica's real estate losses had exceeded $420,000 compared to what my continued management would have achieved. Their business overhead had increased by over $87,000 annually due to loss of the headquarters property and the need for expensive commercial leases. Their overall financial position had deteriorated by more than $680,000 in the first year alone. "Mom, we made a terrible mistake," Marcus had admitted during a desperate phone call 8 months after the Freeway incident. "We didn't understand the value of what you were providing, and we've paid an enormous price for our ingratitude and selfishness." But the real estate consequences had been accompanied by social and professional consequences that had been equally devastating. Their colleagues and clients had noticed the deterioration in their business operations and professional stability, and their reputations had suffered as their real estate portfolio had become less sophisticated and effective. Marcus's commercial real estate business had lost 3 major clients who'd been impressed by the property management capabilities that had actually been provided by my expertise. Jessica's consulting practice had faced credibility problems that had affected her ability to attract high-level clients and had damaged her reputation among professional contacts who'd expected continued business sophistication. "Eleanor, we understand now that we destroyed the best real estate partnership we'll ever have access to," Jessica had written in a letter that had reached me 10 months after the restructuring. "We lost not just your property management, but also your trust and your presence in our lives. We have no explanation for our ingratitude except our own arrogance and stupidity. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence had been the community recognition that my response to their betrayal had demonstrated exactly what happened when people underestimated someone based on age-related assumptions about capability and willingness to fight back." Eleanor Martinez has become a legend in Southern California real estate circles. My former colleague Roberto Chen had told me during a dinner celebration 8 months after the incident. People talk about how she turned the tables on family members who tried to exploit her expertise while abandoning her during a medical emergency. "You've become an inspiration for seniors who refuse to accept family exploitation." Standing in my new Malibu oceanfront condo, 18 months after the Freeway incident, overlooking the Pacific Ocean while reviewing property statements that showed continued superior performance under my independent management, I felt a deep satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with the complete validation of my right to live according to my own values and priorities. I'd fought for my real estate independence, my professional dignity, and my right to be treated with respect and appreciation rather than exploitation and abandonment, and I'd won completely. The $8.2 million in properties that Marcus and Jessica had lost access to had been a small price for teaching them that respect for elderly family members wasn't optional, and that attempting to exploit someone with substantial real estate expertise was a recipe for permanent financial disadvantage. "Patricia, do you think I was too harsh in my response to Marcus and Jessica's betrayal?" I'd asked my attorney during one of our regular check-in conversations. "Eleanor, you gave them exactly the lesson they needed about the consequences of real estate exploitation and family abandonment," Patricia had replied. "They tried to steal your expertise while discarding your well-being. You showed them that some people fight back with consequences that last forever." The most meaningful aspect of my victory had been the way it had transformed my understanding of my own power and value. At 72, I was managing real estate more successfully, contributing more meaningfully to my community through mentoring programs, and living more independently than I had at any previous point in my retirement. The attempt to exploit my expertise while abandoning my well-being had actually catalyzed the most empowering and financially successful period of my entire retirement. If Someone in your life is trying to exploit your expertise while treating you with disrespect based on assumptions about age or family obligations. Remember my story. Remember that experience and competence are not diminished by age when you have resources, knowledge, and the determination to fight for your right to be treated with dignity and appreciation. Remember that people who try to steal your contributions while abandoning your well-being might discover they've challenged someone with the capability to ensure they regret their exploitation for the rest of their lives. What's your story? Have you ever had to fight back against family members who tried to exploit your expertise while showing you disrespect and ingratitude? Share it in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more stories about turning your biggest family betrayal into your most empowering victory. Because sometimes the best response to people who abandon you on a freeway is showing them exactly what they lose when they discard someone who controls their real estate security. Marcus and Jessica thought they could exploit my expertise while treating me as disposable. What they actually did was lose access to property management worth over $8 million while learning that some people fight back with consequences that reshape entire family dynamics. Sometimes the people who think you're just a convenient resource are about to discover you're actually someone with the power to restructure their entire real estate future. That's a lesson worth $8.2 million, and every dollar was worth it to prove that respect and appreciation aren't negotiable at any age. Justice served. Independence reclaimed. Expertise respected. Victory complete. The view from 72 is spectacular when you're surrounded by people who appreciate your contributions rather than exploit them. Marcus and Jessica learned too late that abandoning someone on the freeway was the most expensive mistake they'd ever made in their lives. Respect your elders, especially when they control your property deeds. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.